It kind of goes without saying that if we want to make a good impression on people, one of the things that we can do is talk about our family in glowing terms, and our spouse too, right? I mean, think about it. We've all done that. Oh, my family, I love them so much. They're the greatest thing that ever happened to me. I couldn't live without them. I can't wait till I walk through the door at the end of the day and they come running into my arms. They smother me with kisses and tell me how much they love me and how much they missed me. Our vacations together are the most wonderful times of my life. They create the best memories. And that may be true sometimes, but other times we feel like our families aren't quite right in the head, right? We've all felt that way. We've all said these things probably to each other. Yeah. They've said it about you. You've said it about them. You certainly thought it. Have you ever thought to yourself, my family is weird. They're creepy. They're not normal. Maybe it's not the one, maybe it's not the family you have now. Maybe it's the family you grew up in. And if you would have asked me, I'm going to share something with you here about 23 families. I don't know why I'm holding up 2 and 3 fingers. 23 families. Once you hear about these people, you might think that you're doing better than a lot of others out there. And if you would have asked me before, is your family strange? I would have said, well, yeah, in some ways, they kind of pride themselves on that. That's kind of kooky, but yeah, they're strange. We're all kind of strange. You know, have you ever, when you were a kid, did you ever go over to anybody's house to spend the night? I don't know if people still do that or not anymore. You know, I grew up in the 70s and 80s and we did it all the time. But you go over to their house and you have fun. Sometimes you think their family is better than yours. They let you get away with things that you can't get away with at home. Or perhaps they're more strict and you think, this is really weird. And you go report it to your brothers and sisters the next day when you get home. I've had a few circumstances like that. But wait to hear this. Wait to hear these families. I found this on ranker.com. And apparently someone scoured a Reddit thread on the creepiest things they've seen families do. Get a load of this and tell me down in the comments below if you can relate to this. Give me your story of a creepy family that you've encountered. Maybe it's your own. Maybe it's the one you grew up in. But I think these have more to do with families that kids have encountered when they went to go spend the night or spend some time over at someone else's house. Give me your experiences. But here's the first one on this list. It's titled, "One Child Had an Awfully Special Quilt." Here's what the Redditor said. "I was babysitting for a girl and noticed weird furs on her bed. She explained to me very matter-of-factly that they were her cats. Her parents skinned her pet cats after they died, presumably of natural causes, and put the pelts on her bed. That was the only time I babysat for them." Listen, anybody with cats, you need to be suspect of. And at our house, we have 8 or 9 of them. That wasn't my choice, by the way. Who's the weird one now? Okay, so the second one is called "The Kids Were Forced into Mandatory Cuddle Time." This one burns in my memory. It's so weird. Listen to this. This Redditor said, "I hung out and played with these 3 siblings. They were all pretty normal kids, but the mom seemed kind of clingy. During the summer, we would play outside a lot. Baseball, hockey, go-karts, swimming, the norm. Every single day at about 12 p.m., the mom would call the kids back to the house one at a time. They would have to go inside for about a half an hour and would then come out while the next kid would go in. Never thought too much about it until one day I was actually in their house with them and found out why she called them. She had mandatory cuddle time with each of the kids. They would lie on the couch and she would spoon them in the quiet for about 30 minutes each. Weirdest thing I've ever encountered." That's creepy. That is, my mother would never do this. But if my mother were to try that with me, I would rebel so hard. I would make life so hard for her that she would never think twice about doing that. No. Okay, here's a very strange one. This one's called "There Was a Baby in the Closet." Yeah. This Redditor said, "This was not my experience, but my aunt's. It was back in the 1950s when my aunt was a teenager. She was hired by a couple to babysit. She'd never babysat for this couple before, but she was impressed because they were fairly wealthy and lived in a big house. These two small children, around 5 and 6 years old, were well-dressed and well-behaved. My aunt spent the day with them, fed them, played with them, etc. That evening, she got them ready for bed. The parents were due back later that night. My aunt heard some sounds coming from an upstairs closet. The children were in bed asleep. She opened the closet and found a crib. And in the crib was a baby. Both the crib and the baby were filthy. I think my aunt woke up the children and asked them about the baby, but their answers were vague. I don't recall my aunt having any luck getting information about the baby from the two older children. My aunt cleaned the baby up. She washed the bedding. I remember her telling me that the baby didn't really make much sound other than the little grunts that had drawn her attention to the closet. She probably tried to feed the baby, but I don't remember that part of the story. According to my aunt, the parents came home, paid her, thanked her, took the baby, and the dad drove her home. She never babysat for them again, and she has no idea what happened to the baby. This one, to me, is not only creepy, but sad. I can't imagine a good outcome. Okay. Here's one called, "They Really, Really Liked the Plates." This Redditor said, "I knew a girl in high school whose parents were obsessed with dinner plates. They had such a huge collection of collectible plates in their house that every room was full of them on display. Their entire house was basically a library set up for these things. Her bedroom was a mattress on the floor surrounded by display cases of plates." That's odd. Not comfortable at all, I would think. "You couldn't even lean on any wall. They were all like this. The last time I went over there, I knocked one off the wall by mistake. I caught it and it didn't even break. But my God, the rage her dad flew into was effing horrifying. He was inches away from punching me. Never went back. They tried to nervously laugh it off like, ha ha, good old dad being funny, ha ha ha. The one time I asked my friend why they had so many, she went on a passionate tangent about all the cool plates they had and why they were so awesome. It went on for an hour. I never asked again because hearing about neat dishware for an hour was like torture." That's really odd. People have weird fascinations, don't they? Okay, this next one's called, "This Family Watched the Same Disturbing Movie Repeatedly." I mean, we all have certain movies that we like, right? Comfort movies. Maybe they're weird to some people, but I kind of get that, but this goes a little far. This Redditor says, "Something that I have witnessed for years only began to hit me as the realization slowly unfolded. A family that I visited frequently, all adult children who still live with their parents, would coincidentally always have the same movie on every single time I visited. They all huddled around as though they are watching it for the first time. Once, when I actually stayed over for a longer duration, the TV was finally turned off when the movie ended, only to be turned on again and the play button pressed for the same movie. I finally realized that this movie is watched multiple times a day, every single day, almost like a ritual. And all the members of the family react the same way to the same scene repeatedly, as if they had never seen it before. For all those asking what movie, it was called Just Ask My Children, and it's about a couple accused of child exploitation. I've never heard of that movie. I've never seen it. Have you? What do you think of it? I haven't even looked it up at this point at all. So what are your thoughts if you've seen it? I'm curious. I'm very curious, but that right there is, there's something very suspicious about that. Here's one. This is called "This Family Kept Their Pet Dog Forever." This Redditor said, "The parents of one of my sister's friends stuffed their dog. He was a little old dog when he died, and they stuffed him. Now it's in their house like a teddy bear." Okay, this might be the least strangest one out of the whole group. And it's the shortest one, too. All right, here's another short one. This one's called, I think it's short. Yeah, it's a short one. This is called "The Bathroom Served as a Photo Booth." Yeah, it already sounds heinous, doesn't it? All right, this Redditor said, "My friend's mom used to bust in on her daughter's friends using the bathroom and quickly snap a picture. She proudly showed me the photo album of random kids using the toilet, looking surprised and confused as hell. Didn't really kick in how effed up that was until later in life." Yeah. You know what? Things like this right here are a good reason to not, if you have young kids at home, don't let them spend the night with other people's kids. Don't. People are too strange nowadays. I don't know how long ago this was, but people are getting stranger and stranger, in my opinion. All right. This next one is titled, "The Kids' Teeth and Umbilical Cords Were Saved and Their Hair Hung Around the House." This Redditor said, "Whenever the father would come home from work or some errand, every family member would greet him by the door and then stand around silently for a minute or so, blankly staring into space as if they were thinking about their next move. Then the father would go sit in the same spot. They would follow and sit down. There was absolute dead silence during dinner time, and they always ate the exact same meal each night." The mother also saved the children's dried off belly buttons, the small piece of the umbilical cord that dries and falls off, and every tooth that fell or that was extracted. The children's hairs were tied into knots or braided and hung around multiple parts of the house. You know, next time you hear about some dad talking about how much he loves his children and greet him at the door at night, you might think about this and wonder what's really going on. All right, this next one's titled, "They Thanked Jesus Every Hour When the Cuckoo Clock Chimed." Here's what this Redditor reported. "I had a good friend in elementary school. They lived in a farmhouse that looked like it belonged to the Addams family. Every wall in this house had a crucifix on it. Not a small handheld-sized crucifix. These were 2 or 3 feet tall on every wall. Bathrooms, bedrooms, closets. They had a room upstairs that we were forbidden to go into, so of course we had to sneak in and see. I didn't know why it was forbidden, but it was basically a Vatican-style church chapel complete with burnt offerings, candles, pews, altar, and a 6-foot-tall crucifix with Jesus hanging on it. But this was not the most WTF thing. They had a cuckoo clock called, They had a cuckoo clock they called the prayer clock. The clock had the 12 disciples for the numbers on the dial. I never knew what came out of the clock on the hour, probably Jesus, but every single hour that clock would go off. My friend's mother would round up all the kids and make us write thank you prayers and place them in the prayer jar." Talk about coercion. "We had to write down thank you notes to Jesus for everything we did in the last hour. If we were playing with Legos and had a snack, I'd have to write down, thank you, Jesus, for letting me play Legos and eating string cheese." His mom would read them and usually would have us edit them, saying things like, "You had apple juice too. You don't think Jesus would be sad if you didn't thank him for the apple juice too?" By about 4th grade, I refused to go over anymore. Boy, it took him a while. It was just too weird, especially since their mom had just had a new baby, and they didn't believe in diapers. They let the kid crawl around naked and peed and crapped everywhere, or on everything. 24 years later, what happened to the kids? Listen to this. The roaming, peeing, crapping baby became a Catholic priest. The second youngest moved out and is a transsexual entertainer. And the oldest, my friend, became a programmer in Silicon Valley. The father eventually left the mother. What a wonderful family. Here's another one called A Family with a Lot of Strange Fears. This Redditor reports, I have an ex whose family would literally burn any meat they cooked for dinner. Chicken, fish, steak, all completely burned. They were terrified about bacteria on their food. I got them to cook my steak medium well, less burned, but still above well, once, but I got some serious looks of disgust. The mother also forced me to draft a living will and instructed me on the proper way to seal a room to protect from a very likely chemical attack with duct tape and plastic sheeting. My. Okay, on to the next one. This one is titled, Perhaps This Mother Really Wanted Grandkids. This Redditor says, that just reminded me of a guy I very briefly dated. His mom would do stuff like lock us in his bedroom together and make creepy comments when she finally unlocked it later. Never had sex with the guy. I was too creeped out and the relationship was very short. I definitely got the impression the mom was trying to trick me into getting pregnant. Wow. Served as more of a deterrent than anything else. Don't think that'll work for you. Okay. The next one is called, They Owned a Large Clown Doll that they would dress in their clothing. Are you afraid of clowns? I know people that are. My father-in-law is deathly afraid of clowns. They don't scare me, I guess. But maybe I haven't come across the right one that pushes my buttons. All right, this is what this Redditor says. A friend from high school theater used to invite me over to her family's house all the time. Her mom collected large vintage dolls like child-sized ballerinas, Victorian girls, and this one overly happy clown. They dressed it up in their own clothing and placed it around the house like it was a family joke, and that it was alive. They also collected and played didgeridoos as a family group. You know what didgeridoos are, right? It sounds cool, but they were all pretty odd individuals. So this kind of reminds me of what people do with the elf on the shelf kind of a thing. Around our house, I don't know if you'll think this is weird or not, but we have, I don't know where we acquired this. It's probably when my kids were very little. We have a little Mario doll, about yay tall. Little Mario doll, from Mario, Super Mario Brothers. And he's just made of cloth with a plastic head, and we put him in various places around the house, and we always wait to see who's going to spot where he's at next. I should have put a picture of it up here somewhere, but it ends up in all sorts of different places. Okay, maybe that is weird. I don't know. I don't know who started that. My kids started. I didn't start. It's not my fault. Don't look at me. My kids are weird. I'm normal. Okay, here's one called Fun with a Phone Book. This Redditor says, I had a friend whose family would get the paper and the phone book and go through crossing out the people who had died. This must have been a long time ago. I haven't even seen a phone book in years. It says they thought it would come in handy someday. That was how my friend justified it, but I'm certain they got some kind of twisted pleasure from it. Maybe it was like a game to them. I don't know. It's not the weirdest thing in the world. I mean, I would have never thought of that. And if I had, I wouldn't have done it, but I don't know, it's not the weirdest thing on this list. Here's one called An Incredibly Paranoid Mother. This Redditor reports, I was about 7 or 8 when I used to play with this girl that lived a few houses down and across the street. I live in a cookie-cutter, very safe and fairly decent neighborhood across the street from a high school. But her mother never let us play outside because, there could be a drive-by. Any car we saw driving by could be someone with a gun and could very easily shoot us and kill us. She also never let us play in the living room near the windows for that same reason. Another time I was over there playing with my friend and the mom pulled me aside. She pointed to a truck she saw parked outside my house on the curb, my uncle's truck. She told me that it's actually probably a burglar and he was inside my house killing my family at that moment. She wouldn't let me go home either for the fear of me also getting killed. She finally let me go home after my mom called later and requested I come home for dinner. I can't imagine. I was going to say I can't imagine what became of that family, but it does say down at the very bottom, the family is still crazy even 13 years later. I must be getting near the end here. But here's one called Haircuts and Dinner Conversation Were Banned. This Redditor says, there was a family of girls I went to church with, and none of them were allowed to cut their hair. I've known families like that. I mean, I thought they were weird too, but I have known families like that. They had to wait until they were 16 so they wouldn't get a haircut they'd regret, because a mother had. They also weren't allowed to talk at the dinner table. One time, one of the daughters were laughing at something and coughed on her food. The mom was afraid of one of them choking and dying, so talking was banned. It's kind of like working for the government. Someone makes one mistake and you get a memo, and now everybody's got to stop doing this one thing, right? No one told me that when I came over for dinner. I just talked and they all stared at me. Here's one called Dad Cooked a Disturbing Dinner. This Redditor says, I spent the night at classmate's house when I was 8. Her dad told us he was cooking dinner that night and proceeded to go out to the backyard, took one of the girls' pet rabbits, cut its throat, then cooked it. When she started to cry, her mom gave her this death stare and said, "Stop it. What does mommy love the best?" And the girl said, "Obedience." That is disturbing. That needs to be investigated. Okay, here's a couple more. This one was called Mom Was Preserved in a Glass Coffin. A friend of mine is a house appraiser in New Jersey. He walks into the living room of one particular client's house, and there's a glass coffin in the living room with the body of a woman preserved inside, like linen. The guy says it's his mother. My friend said it was the fastest he ever appraised a house in his entire career. Now, I've seen a meme like this where people have preserved bodies and they have them like in a glass coffee table. And I remember the first time I saw it, I said, surely this can't be real. And it wasn't. But apparently someone has done that. Very strange. Okay. This one's called They All Dress Alike in Pink Poodle Skirts and Long Gloves. This Redditor says, it's a mom, a daughter who's probably 16, and a younger daughter who's probably 12. All three are always dressed alike, usually in a pink or white poodle dress, shiny black heels, and long stockings. The youngest one usually just wears sneakers. They all always have long white or black gloves on that usually go to their elbows. Their hair is always done up in big elaborate curls, and the older two always walk around with their hands cupped in front of them. Strange folk, all very nice and polite, but strange. Yeah, I'll say. I've never seen anything like that. I don't know what I would think if I saw it once, I would think, oh, they're going somewhere. But if I saw them repeatedly and they were always like that, that'd be hard not to talk about. Okay. Here's one called A Family of Sarah Michelle Gellar Fans. You know who she was, right? You know, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. My best friend's family has a life-size cardboard cutout of Sarah Michelle Gellar. They would adorn it with accessories like scarves and sunglasses, then hide it just behind closed doors and around corners to scare each other and their guests with it. I was caught by it many times, and it was always a laugh. It was always a laugh hearing a random loud gasp or scream in the house. Okay, that's also not the weirdest thing, okay? I can see why people would do this. I might actually do that. Not with Sarah Michelle Gellar. I mean, at least I wouldn't use her image for that. Maybe. I don't know. Get your mind out of the gutter. Okay. This one's odd. Oh, thank God my mother's not like this. This one's called A Mother Would Check Her Son's Bowel Movements. This guy reports, I went to this guy's house once after school. I wasn't friends with him, but we were assigned to a project together. Oh, joy, joy, joy. We'll call him Gary. Anyways, we were working on this project when he excused himself to use the restroom. 15 minutes later, he returned. A little while later, I decided to use the restroom while he was making snacks. I walked into the bathroom, and behold, before my eyes, floating like a manatee through the brown estuaries of Florida, was the result of Gary's earlier bathroom excursion. I like his simile there. I shrugged it off. I mean, we all forget at least once, right? Flushed for him, took a leak, flushed again, and went to work on the project. Gary's mom gets home from work a couple hours later. She nods to us and says hello politely before heading towards the back of the house. A few seconds later, she returns to the kitchen where we were working and screams, "Where is it?" I jump and am confused, so I shoot a WTF look to Gary. Gary muttered, "It wasn't me, it was him." His mom glared at me, huffed, and walked out. Gary later explained that every day after school he would take a dump and was required to leave it in the toilet so his mom could check it. He wasn't even sick or anything. She just wanted to check it to make sure he was healthy or something. I never went back to Gary's house. Okay, this one right here. Oh my word. I only got 2 more left, but listen to this one. And I'm going to have to change my word a little bit here for the sake of YouTube not shutting down this video. So bear with me, kind of catch on a little bit here. This register says, I got to know this one dude in junior high through a mutual friend, and he seemed like a pretty cool guy. So I went to his house a couple of times to play video games and ride bikes, etc. I met his parents, who seemed kind of different. I couldn't put my finger on it until we were playing games one day, and his dad stepped in front of the TV and said, "Well, this is weekly family prom night. We always let one of the kids pick out a video from the store, and we watch it together. Want to stay longer?" Even though I was a young boy, that was just too much for me. The thought of him, his sister, and parents all watching prom together freaked me out. I didn't stay. I can only imagine that family has some deep, deep, dark secrets. I mean, really, honestly, I think legitimately they should probably be in jail for exposing their kids to something like that. Okay, last one here. Frowning was not allowed. This register says, I once went to my friend's house for her birthday party when I was in middle school. The family was super weird. All the walls were painted these horrific pastel colors, and every single room had at least one photograph of Jesus, if not multiple. Anyway, we're all hanging out at the party, and the mother comes up to me and very sternly tells me she would like a word with me. First, she was mad at me because we do not swear in this house. Okay, but I had said geez. Second, she said, we do not frown in this house. If you weren't constantly smiling, you were in trouble. That's it for all of these. I hope you've enjoyed them. But in a way, I hope it's kind of giving you some comfort that maybe your family is not as weird as you thought. And now that I've read all of these, I can't think of one thing about my family that even stacks up to any one of these. So maybe my family is normal. Maybe none of us are normal. We all have our own ways of doing things. We all have our own rituals and traditions and patterns. And we just kind of accept these things as the new normal. It's what we do. And yeah, it's that way all the time. But I hope that you're not extreme like these families are. They seem pretty far off the reservation here. So anyway, did you like that? Did you like that? I mean, in a strange kind of way. That doesn't make you weird. All right. Enjoy your family. Love them. But be honest with yourself. It's okay. It's okay that they're strange and odd. But, let's kind of keep things under wrap here. Under wraps. Oh, my mouth is dry now. I've got to get going. I got things to do, but I do thank you for watching. And I'll just catch you in the next one. All right, guys. In the meantime, be wise.